Hey, it's Ryan from the MoviesDeadWorld.net, back again with a Scream Factory Blu-ray review for I Saw What You Did, which is a William Castle production starring Joan Crawford. As you can see, it lists her predominantly on the Blu-ray case, except for the fact that she's not really in it that often. She's basically gets about 15 minutes of screen time, and they used her name just to promote the film. And William Castle is also predominantly displayed as a name on the front as well. And you can see that it talks about uxoricide, which only someone sitting home with a dictionary probably knows the meaning of. Probably sitting home thinking, yes, I finally get to use that word. But it basically means the killing of a wife, of a spouse. So, yes, this does feature that. But it's really a film about telephone calls and the prank phone calls of a bunch of some teenage girls and their little sister who get to stay home alone at night. And you know what that means? Trouble. Libby Mannering is tasked with staying home to take care of her little baby sister when her parents go out to this really boring party that we get to see a couple times within the film. She invites her friend Kit over as well, because what's better than hanging out with your friend and taking care of your little sister on the side? What they start doing is prank phone calling, which I guess back in the 60s was probably a huge thing. Probably wouldn't start doing that now because you never know who you're going to get on the other end of the phone. But in this film, they have a grand old time calling people, breaking up relationships, pretending to be mistresses, the normal teenage everyday things. But the biggest thing that they start doing after they've gotten tired of claiming that they're the mistress of a husband and making the wife suspicious, they begin to call people randomly in the telephone book and say, I saw what you did, and I know who you are. Now, I guess back in the 60s that was a fun thing to do just because, but now you definitely wouldn't ever want to give somebody a phone call like that. And I probably wouldn't even Facebook message them like that either. You don't know what you're going to get on the other end. And actually, in I Saw What You Did, neither do the two teenage girls, because they end up calling Steve Merrick, who is a devilishly handsome man on the phone. At least that's what Libby thinks. And so she becomes kind of obsessed with him in a way that's kind of creepy. She decides that she wants to head over to his house to meet him, even though a woman already picked up the phone previously. She gets all dressed up in her best fancy attire. She takes her mom's car and then loses her registration from the car when she actually finds Joan Crawford there, who is pretty much playing a version of herself, screaming, yelling, and stealing the registration from the car, so that now when Libby goes home, they have no registration. Parents know they were out. Big trouble. But the bigger trouble is that Steve Merrick is now suspicious. He wants to know who this other person is, who he thinks is named Suzette, but is really Libby, who is just messing around. So he's pretty upset that he's now been accused of something that Libby doesn't know what it is, but he sure does, because earlier in the film, William Castle, harkening back to his early days of filmmaking, gives us a pretty brutal scene where he stabs his wife in the shower numerous times, really reminiscent of Psycho, which was only a few years back from this film. So probably a big, I would say, an inspiration, but I think that's probably giving them too much credit. I would say it's more a taking from that film. But that's a very Psycho-esque moment that's actually really brutal for this film, because I Saw What You Did often has two different sides to its story. It's really focused on the naivete of the little girls, who aren't so little, they're more like teenagers, but really it's focused on their naivete and their coming of age and their innocence, because we get a lot of really jaunty, upbeat music that happens at the same time when they're making their prank phone calls and are doing their kid stuff. On the other hand, we do have Steve Merrick, who is often portrayed as very violent, suffers from a few different adult themes, like a wife who's leaving him, and a neighbor who's played by Joan Crawford, who is so obsessed with him that she'll do whatever it takes to be with him, which means blackmailing him so that he will stay with her rather than leave her. So Joan Crawford, kind of crazy in this one, even though she doesn't really get that much of a chance to have much screen time here. So William Castle is really focused on these two themes: this innocence and this the adulthood that's threatening to invade Libby and Kit's life. So I really like the juxtaposition, especially when Libby is dressing up to kind of head over to Steve Merrick's house, getting into her best clothes. And both Kit and her little sister comment on it, how she got so dressed up to go see him. And it really it gels together with what the film is trying to explore, especially with Steve, who is also trying to juggle two different sides to himself. He's got the normal side, and then he's also got the violently aggressive side, which often comes out within this film. We do see both of them, and he has a more and more difficult time of controlling the more violent side, especially once he finds out that they're suspicious of his murders. So I really like that about I Saw What You Did. On the other hand, it is a slower film, and it really focuses on that phone call plot way too much. So William Castle really sticks to that plot and doesn't really flesh out the plot in any complex way. So it really is a little one note for the plot, especially when it comes to things like the kids continually calling Steve Merrick's house. You would think if someone didn't pick up the phone, you just move on to the next person in the phone book, but no, they've got to come back to him not once, but twice, 3 times maybe. They need to, get a hold of him or something. I don't really understand why they had to call him so many times. It doesn't really make sense within the whole plot of the film, but it is a way to actually get the kids to talk to him, so I guess for the plot itself, it makes sense. But it does stretch believability quite a bit, and that is an issue when it comes to I Saw What You Did, because, you want that realism of, making sure that the motivation behind Steve's anger and Libby's fascination with him is there. And it is here in parts, but I think the overall simplicity of the plot makes it so that it's less believable than it could have been. So there's not really much more plot building than that, and that often makes the story feel kind of forced. But there are some good things about I Saw What You Did, like the house itself, which is really atmospheric and large, and it gives William Castle a chance to play with the surroundings a little bit, especially during the final sequence, which is basically a stalking sequence. Steve actually comes to Libby's house in the middle of the night while she's sleeping to confront her because he thinks she's a woman named Suzette who knows all about what he's been doing. And so he confronts her thinking that he's actually going to murder her. But then when he sees that it's just a child and she has a even littler sister with her, he changes his mind. He basically acts like a dad. And that kind of gives him some character development, which we don't often get from Steve in this film, until the very end when he kind of disappears, peeks through the windows, and figures out that they are going to know that he actually killed his wife. So that all changes towards the end. One of the really odd things about the film is that towards the end when there's that confrontation with Steve and Libby, and they're saved by a rogue policeman who just happens to be around because Kit's father noticed that she was talking about some guy and figured out that they would go to Libby's house somehow. It's not really explained. There's a whole moment where the police officer shoots Steve dead in the backseat of the car that Libby is trying to drive away with. Pretty terrifying stuff. Not really something that you can just kind of shrug off and say, oh, well, glad I survived that one. But that's exactly what Libby does. Libby and her sister, they kind of have a moment where they both say, whew, at least we're not dead, but we're still probably going to get in trouble with our parents because the back window got shot out. But then it kind of morphs into this really, again, that jaunty, upbeat music that kind of drives I Saw What You Did, and it feels like a very, very neat and happy ending when really things aren't as happy as they would seem. There's still a dead man in the back seat of the car. So, not super good night, I guess. But at least Kit and Libby survived, so that's one thing. But I Saw What You Did is a pretty lightweight and fun thriller. even though it does have a few hiccups during its middle portion where things just seem like they're kind of forced and thrown together. Not everyone will find this a very interesting film, though. It is in black and white, so those who really have to stay away from the classics, black and white I just can't watch. They're not going to enjoy this any more than they probably would any other black and white horror film. And Joan Crawford probably won't persuade a lot of people to watch this, even though she's got a 15-minute cameo. She does play her regular character pretty well here, but not to the extent that probably most people are expecting when they see in big letters on the cover starring Joan Crawford. That was kind of a marketing gimmick that William Castle had thrown in there, like he did with all of his other films, except for I Saw What You Did doesn't really focus a lot on that marketing gimmick. But Scream Factory's Blu-ray is a pretty nice Blu-ray for the quality portion of it. The video looks really good, except for a few, cigarette burns and some dirt and debris that are clearly there on the film itself, because it is an old film. So you can only do so much with the preservation of it until some of the deterioration aspects seep in. So, but it looks really good. You can't say too many bad things about it, and they did what they could with the print that they had. So. That's a plus, especially now that it's on Blu-ray. And then it also gets a 2.0 master audio, DTS master audio for its track. And that sounds pretty good as well, although it's not going to blow you away with all of its orchestral score. There's not really much to the audio itself, so not super noticeable, but they did a good job of that as well. The area where this kind of falls short is on the special features, and I wasn't really expecting too many special features, especially with a film of this age. It's hard sometimes to get anybody back that you could talk to about it. But this one does have a photo gallery, so that amounts to almost 4 minutes of photos and extra footage that were taken for this film. So you can watch that if you want. I normally those don't really add a whole lot to the disc anyway. They're kind of add on for when you're lacking certain things. So, but then there's also a theatrical trailer, and the cover artwork is pretty good. Back artwork as well, and then there is just a black and white photograph on the inside. So, the packaging is nice, but other than that, you're not going to get a lot of special features. But I gave this a 6 out of 10. The film itself is a 6.5, and the special features and the quality and everything is about a 6. It's pretty middle of the road. I'm sorry, and you're getting this basically for the movie. So if you've seen I Saw What You Did, you kind of caught it some time ago and you wanted to own it on video, then now's your chance. Otherwise, if you're not sure about it, there's nothing here like special features wise that's really gonna make you want to pick this up. So at your discretion, I guess I would say. Anyway, this is one of the Blu-rays that you can win on the new raffle that I'm doing, a giveaway that I'm doing with 3 other Scream Factory Blu-rays, giving those away to people who subscribe to YouTube. And then there's also a Rafflecopter link, which I'll post in the info below, so that you can sign up, start subscribing and do your thing, and get your entries in so that you can win these 4 Blu-ray packages. It's I Saw What You Did, You'll Like My Mother, and Village of the Damned. So those 4 are up for grabs in the giveaway. You'll win all 4, so it's not like one person gets one type of ratio. So definitely check out that raffle giveaway and enter it. And please, subscribe to me, because that way you definitely will catch all the giveaways that we have. But thanks for watching. Check out I Saw What You Did, and I'll be back next time with another